Hello, dear friends. Welcome. Today we are going to do interest groups and pressure groups. This is for the students of plus 2. And before I proceed further, let me introduce you what basically interest groups and pressure groups are. Basically, pressure groups are the groups organized by people to put pressure on the governmental machinery. On the other hand, interest groups are the groups of people who have formed association to influence public policy and work for their own interest. There are not many differences among these. When interest groups put pressure on the government, they work as a pressure group. So let us begin this topic. First of all, meaning and definition of the interest group. Before that, I must tell you, we are living in this age of technology, age of revolution in technology basically. And in this age, we need so many organizations to protect our rights, and along with political parties, there are many other groups depending on the nature of our society. As our society is a pluralistic society, so we have several groups that have or those have come into existence for the protection of special interest of the people. And these groups are either interest groups or pressure groups. So let us do this chapter, meaning and definition of interest and pressure groups. First of all, meaning of pressure groups. This definition, meaning of pressure groups. Let me write meaning of pressure groups. Whenever people organize themselves into a group to protect their mutual interest, and that group exert pressure on the government, it is known as this pressure group. So basically, interest group and pressure group, there is a little difference. So here first we would talk about pressure groups and the definition given by H. Ziegler. Okay, so what is pressure group? It is organized aggregate, right? Our pressure group has been defined by Ziegler as an organized aggregate which seek to influence the context of which seeks to influence the context of governmental decision without attempting to place its member in formal governmental capacities. What does it mean? A pressure group is organized aggregate, यानी कि ये एक समूह है लोगों का, ऑर्गेनाइज लोग करते हैं अपने आप को जो क्या करता है, इट सीक्स टू इन्फ्लुएंस, ये इन्फ्लुएंस करना चाहता है किसको, गवर्नमेंटल डिसीजंस को, बिना विदाउट अटेम्प्टिंग टू प्लेस इट्स मेंबर इन फॉर्मल गवर्नमेंटल कैपेसिटीज, अपने मेंबर को गवर्नमेंटल कैपेसिटीज में प्लेस करने के बिना ही वो गवर्नमेंटल डिसीजंस को इन्फ्लुएंस करना चाहता है। तो जिगलर के डेफिनेशन के अकॉर्डिंग ये ऑर्गेनाइज्ड संगठन है जो कि इन्फ्लुएंस करना चाहता है, किस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, किस संदर्भ में, यहाँ पे कॉन्टेक्स्ट आना चाहिए था, कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ गवर्नमेंटल डिसीजंस के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, बिना अपने लोगों को उसमें सरकार में प्लेस किए हुए उसको इन्फ्लुएंस करके अपने फेवर में करना चाहती है, उसको हम प्रेशर ग्रुप्स कहते हैं। क्या कहते हैं? प्रेशर ग्रुप्स, नॉट इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप्स। दिस इज डेफिनेशन ऑफ प्रेशर ग्रुप्स, कीप इन माइंड। ओके, मूव करते हैं नेक्स्ट। ये जिगलर का डेफिनेशन था। अब चलते हैं, इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप्स बिकम इन टर्न प्रेशर ग्रुप्स एज द सीक गवर्नमेंट एड इन accomplishing what is advantageous to them। और इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप ही प्रेशर ग्रुप का रूप धारण कर लेते हैं when they put pressure on the government, और अपने फेवर में, अपने एडवांटेज के लिए उसको यूज करते हैं। कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप्स और प्रेशर ग्रुप्स ऑलमोस्ट सिमिलर कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स होते हैं। ओके, कॉमन इंटरेस्ट होता है। These interest groups have, pressure groups have common interest आपस में। स्पेसिफिक पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट के लिए स्पेसिफिक इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप्स फॉर्म होते हैं। एंड प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ राइट वॉलंटरी मेंबरशिप, all the members in these pressure groups are voluntary, right? Yes, voluntary membership, nobody is forced to become member. Then non-political character, they are non-political, they just work for their own benefit. Then extra constitutional agencies, they have no representation, or there is nothing mentioned about them in the constitution. Along with this, they have 6 point, we can say, formal organization. These organization are formal organizations. It means formally these organizations are made. They have office bearers like president, vice president, secretary, cashier, and they work like an organization, and they formally hold meetings with governmental officials, legislators, ministers also, and they try to protect their own rights. Along with its other character is universality. 7 universality. Universality means it is found everywhere. Everywhere means it doesn't matter what kind of government structure is there. It is liberal government, it is totalitarian, it is monarchical. In every kind of government, one kind or other kind of pressure group do exist or are found. Though the number of pressure groups in democratic organizations and democratic countries are more. And in totalitarian government, they work under so many limitations, but they do exist in those countries also. Then we have lack of responsibilities. Lack of responsibilities. It means these interest groups or pressure groups are not responsible to the people as political parties are, well, or as they do, so they are not responsible. Hopefully, you have understood the characteristics of interest groups and pressure groups. Let's talk about now the kinds of pressure groups. How many kinds of pressure groups do exist there? Kinds of pressure groups. So there are many kinds of pressure groups, and broadly we can divide them into two: economic pressure groups and non-economic pressure groups, and they all have been categorized here into different groups. These are known as sectional groups. All sections of the people form their groups. For example, All India Trade Union Congress, and here even teachers groups union or a students group can be included in this. Then we have religious pressure groups formed on the religious line: Hindu Sabha, Musliman Sabha, or Sikh Force. Such kind of groups do exist. Then we have caste pressure groups related to caste. For example, Brahman Sabha. Then Yadavs have their own groups. Then some kind of pressure groups, those are based on some cause. For example, abolition of dowry system, child marriage. Then we have some anomic groups also. These groups are formed for temporary work, for temporary benefits, or for temporary actions. They are known as anomic groups. Along with this, we have certain tribal groups, peasants groups, labor groups, and different groups do exist. We have labor groups, labor groups. There are so many kinds of groups, but broadly we can divide them into these five. And sectional groups, all kind of farm group, labor groups, or All India Trade Congress, or teachers groups, they'll fall in this category. Hopefully up to here it is clear. Now you are clear with kinds of pressure groups. These are the pressure groups symbols, or we can say the flag they use normally: FICCI, AITUC. Then methods of working of pressure groups. How do these pressure groups work? First is sending of petitions. What does it mean? These pressure groups first send petition to the officials concerned, and this is the first way of doing this. They send petition letters to the officials of the government to influence their working in their own favor. Then we have use of press and mass media. It is used for, right, radio, television, newspaper, magazines are used to propagate their own views, right? And by that way they get attention of the government and the officials. Then next we have demonstration, strike, dharnas, rallies. These pressure groups use these tactics of strike, dharnas, and rallies so that they can attract government and people and can win people's opinion also in their favor. Then we have propaganda. Propaganda is advertising their views in newspaper, magazines, right, and doing public meetings and telling their views about that. By that way they win favor of the people and the government also. Then we have, they exert certain kind of election support for certain candidates who promise them to work for them after and to solve their problems after the election if they win. Then we have lobbying. It is a technique of putting pressure on the government and governmental officials, and for this pressure groups send deputations. They also do meetings with the high officials, ministers, legislators, and they do run certain kinds of campaigns like signature campaigns, right? So lobbying is another methods of putting pressure or method of working of pressure groups, right? So these are the main methods of the working of pressure groups. Along with this, they influence bureaucracy, they establish relationships with the legislators and the ministers. They also offers bribes and high posts to the officials, and they take judicial help also. And along with this, they send representation and appear before the parliamentary committee. These are the way of working of a pressure groups. Now, functions of the pressure groups. Main function of the pressure group is to promote and protect the interest of their members. जो उनके मेंबर होते हैं उनके इंटरेस्ट को प्रोटेक्ट करना, प्रमोट करना. They also function to influence while making public policies and laws in their favors. To establish contact with government officials is also their function. To keep the political parties informed about their views, about their interests is also, and to make propaganda is another function of pressure groups and interest groups. Demerits of pressure groups. Increase in the corruption. These pressure groups bribe to get their interests realized. They help political parties financially also in contesting elections, and they also send precious gifts to the high officials and the ministers so that their work is done. Then harmful for national unity. This is harmful for the national unity also, as they narrow down the working of the official in their favors, and that is actually dangerous for the people. Undemocratic practices. They use corruptions and putting pressure methods, strike, dharnas, and creates problem for the administration. So they use certain undemocratic method, illegal methods also. Less attention towards the interests of general public. They are least bothered about the interests of the general public. They are bothered about their own interests only. Encourage violence. These pressure groups encourage violence by resorting to violent methods, harming public properties, strike, dharnas, and sometimes they set fire to public properties also, and that has caused so many problem in the society and loss to the society, material as well as life losses also. Merits of pressure groups. These pressure groups have certain merits also. Source of professional knowledge. Means people of different professions have knowledge about their own professions, and they provide it to the government and the people. From those knowledge, government comes to know how to frame rule for them. Then protection of special interest. They protect special interest of their people, whereas political parties protect the interest of the general interest. These interest groups and pressure groups protect special interest of the people. Make the government responsible. They criticize the government and put questions and talk about their policies, faulty policies, and is able to make government responsible. Helpful in policy formation. These pressure groups are also helpful in policy formulation. They render needful help to the government when any information is sought from the government from them, and this help in policy formation. Then eradication of social evils. These pressure groups have been able to eradicate social evils also, like group against dowry system, child marriage, drug prohibitions, untouchability. So such groups have helped in the eradication of social evils also. So along with its demerits, pressure groups have merits also. Now let's talk about the difference between pressure groups and political parties. If you talk about the main differences of political parties and pressure groups, there are few differences, but they are totally unique differences. Political parties are fundamentally of political character, but pressure groups are not. To seek political power is main of political parties, but pressure groups work for their own benefits, not to seek power. Then heterogeneous elements are politically integrated in political parties, but pressure groups are based on common interest. Then difference in their techniques. Political parties and pressure groups have different techniques. So if you talk about the major differences of political parties, these are few differences between political parties and the pressure groups. Along with this, we can say there are differences in their organization, differences in influencing power, differences in their objectives, difference in their techniques, right? So these are the major differences. So here I end this chapter. It was done in brief. If you have any query, any point that you don't understand, please do comment so that I may clear it in another video. So take care. Till then, bye bye.